The heritage of Cyrus was the heritage of human understanding, tolerance, courage, compassion, and above all, human liberty. On the 14th of October 1971, the Cyrus Cylinder was presented by Princess Ashraf of Iran to the United Nations and praised by the then Secretary-General as an ancient declaration of human rights. Through this homage to Cyrus the Great, Princess Ashraf described the essence of humanity, which encapsulates the reason I find the Cyrus Cylinder to be the most interesting artifact of the ancient world. The Cyrus Cylinder was discovered in Babylon, near Hilla in modern-day Iraq, in March 1879. Although its discovery is not well documented, it is said to have been found by the Assyriologist Hormuzd Razam. The British Museum was conducting an excavation program in Mesopotamia following a dig by British archaeologist Austin Henry Lanyard in 1850. There were 4 phases of excavation, which provided a fascinating insight into the ancient history of the region. The discovery of the Cyrus Cylinder happened on the second of the 4, and its discovery was a significant moment for the world because it provided insight into the political and cultural beliefs of the ancient Babylonian Empire. The cylinder was made on behalf of King Cyrus the Great, who lived in the 6th century BCE and was the founder of the Achaemenid Empire. This was one of the largest empires in ancient history and spanned 3 continents. Cyrus is remembered for his many military conquests, as well as for his policy of tolerance towards the people he conquered. He is said to have spared the lives of defeated soldiers and chose willingly to be the ally of his people so that his empire was peaceful. Cyrus was known for his humane treatment of those he conquered, allowing them to keep their own religious beliefs and customs and even helping to rebuild their temples and cities. He is one of the first leaders in world history to develop the principles of human rights and cultural diversity within his empire. What I find particularly interesting is that due to Cyrus's policies as seen on the cylinder, he was able to shape the Middle East in a way we might not recognize today. The Achaemenid Empire was the first multicultural and multi-faith state on such a large scale, and so it had to be run in a unique way. Cyrus showed great respect to the many languages, peoples, and religions living within Persia and modelled how to run a great multicultural society. Cyrus's society survived 200 years of stability until it was finally destroyed by Alexander the Great. I think that much of this peace and success is owed to the tolerance spread by the message of the Cyrus Cylinder. I think that the form of the cylinder is unusual and interesting too. As you can see, the cuneiform inscriptions are made upon a cylinder the size of a rugby ball, made from clay. It would have been baked dry in the sun, which was ideal for the Babylonian desert. There are 3 theories for why it may be cylindrical. The barrel-shaped form was commonly used in ancient Mesopotamia for foundation deposits, which were inscriptions buried under significant structures such as city walls and temples. As I previously mentioned, the cylinder was found in the city walls of Babylon. As a foreign conqueror who was conscious of maintaining peace within his empire, Cyrus might have used the cylinder shape to affirm his respect for local tradition. On the other hand, Dr. John Curtis argues that it is this shape because it's endlessly revolving and never finishes. Arguably, this would have given the cylinder more majesty and shown the endless peace Cyrus wanted to spread throughout his empire. However, I believe that it is cylindrical so that it could be printed en masse. If the cylinder was to be placed and rolled upon a sheet of wet clay, then it would act rather like a stamp and produce document after document of Cyrus's proclamation. This would have been an effective and ingenious way of spreading his message quickly. The British Museum also announced in 2010 that 2 inscribed clay fragments held since 1881 were part of a cuneiform tablet that was inscribed with the same text as the Cyrus Cylinder, and these fragments had come from a small site of Dilem near Babylon. This was exciting as it suggests that the cylinder, or at least Cyrus's proclamation, was spread throughout his empire, and we might find more evidence of his seizure of Babylon in the coming years. The Cyrus Cylinder also has religious significance for both Jews and Christians like myself, as its story is mentioned in the Bible. In the book of Ezra, Cyrus is described as issuing a decree that allows Jews exiled in Babylon to return to Jerusalem and rebuild their temple. This event is commemorated by Jews during the holiday of Hanukkah, and this story was not seen outside of Scripture until the discovery of the cylinder, which backed up the biblical account. In the book of Isaiah, Cyrus is described as the Lord's anointed, who will rebuild Jerusalem and set the Jewish people free. Most remembered, however, is the story of the writing on the wall from the book of Daniel. It tells of a feast held by King Belshazzar of Babylon, during which a mysterious hand appears and writes a message on the walls of the palace. The king was troubled by the writing and summoned Daniel, a wise man and prophet, to interpret its meaning. Daniel explained that the message, which read Mene, Mene, Tekel, Upharsin, is a message from God that the king has been weighed and found wanting, and that his kingdom would be divided and given to the Medes and the Persians. That same night, King Cyrus conquered Babylon, and Belshazzar was killed. The story is often interpreted as a warning against pride and a reminder that all earthly kingdoms are temporary and subject to divine judgment. It's also interesting as it echoes the beliefs held by King Cyrus that he had captured Babylon under the command of God. Above all, it is the words written on the cylinder that I find the most interesting. Cyrus began by detailing the tyranny of Nabonidus, king of Babylon, explaining that he felt Nabonidus was an incompetent person in the ruling of the city. He then explained how he felt that Nabonidus continually did evil against the city, and how his enslavement of the people of Babylon was ruining them all. Later on the cylinder, Cyrus continued by explaining that King Nabonidus had imposed a corvée to secure unpaid labour from his subjects, and that he felt this went against the wishes of the gods. I find the fact that Cyrus would so publicly condemn slavery a remarkable example of the shared humanity and cohabitation of the ancient world. When I learned about the cylinder, I realised that I had greatly misunderstood our ancestors and had made unfair assumptions about the Persian Empire. The first examples known of slavery date back to 6000 to 2000 BCE, and so I had always believed that the majority of ancient civilization had passively accepted or agreed with the enslavement of people, especially those who had been captured or didn't agree with the views or religions of a ruler. However, the edict seems to be Cyrus's widespread criticism of empires that treated their people so cruelly, and to have included this in such a great declaration, he must have genuinely and passionately believed that the slaves in Babylon should never have been enslaved. Cyrus also explains the events when he took Babylon upon the cylinder. It is written that he entered Babylon without fighting or battle, and was greeted happily by the people. Much like the story in the Bible, it says that all the people of Babylon rejoiced at his kingship, and their faces shone. Other accounts of the takeover of Babylon explain that Cyrus met the Babylonian army in battle near Opis, and seeing this, the people of Sippar opened their gates to him without resistance. His claims of the people's rejoice is backed up throughout literature, and it is believed that after 2 weeks, Cyrus was welcomed into Babylon with festivities. Throughout the cylinder are descriptions of joy, peace, and happiness, but I find the descriptions of Cyrus's regard for the people the most interesting. He explains that his army had marched in peace, and he did not permit anyone to frighten the people, and he sought the welfare of the city and all its sacred centres, regardless of the religion. The reason that I chose the Cyrus cylinder for my speech is because I think that we, in the modern day, should take inspiration from the cohabitation of our ancient ancestors. It is written on the cylinder that he freed the slaves from their service, and contrasting the religious conflict we see today, he explains that all of the people lived together in friendship. He returned the images of the gods that had originally stood in Babylon and put them back in their places. He gathered all of the exiled people, including the Jewish people, and returned them to their homes in the city. He brought peace to the land and increased the number of offerings to the gods to strengthen the defense of the city. And finally, he finished building the Great Wall of Babylon, where the cylinder was found thousands of years later. It is truly inspirational that a figure of authority from so long ago could show such tolerance and kindness towards captured and different people. Whilst it could indeed be argued that the cylinder was a form of ancient propaganda, the message written should still be one echoed throughout international diplomacy today. The Cyrus cylinder is easily the most fascinating object of the ancient world for its lasting effect on modern politics and its uses by the people today. In 1917, following the genocide of Jewish people by the Nazis, Britain declared itself a national Jewish home and a place of safety for those seeking refuge. The Jewish people, remembering the saviour from exile and safety from persecution that King Cyrus had granted them through his edict, displayed pictures of King Cyrus and King George V alongside one another. The cylinder was also put on display in the British Museum so that its message was in public view and stood as a demonstration of the tolerance and peace for the Jewish people across Europe and indeed the world following the end of the war. Much like the belief of King Cyrus, George V wanted to suggest that Britain's success in war was a divine plan and a promise of peace from God for the persecuted people. 50 years later, communism was a problem in Europe, so Britain and America decided that the Shah in Iran, following the legacy of the Cyrus Cylinder, would be ideal influence to help stop it. As his influence grew, the Shah wanted to put himself in the centre of such a great tradition, and so circulated coins with his face on one side and the Cyrus Cylinder on the other. Borrowed from Britain, the cylinder was to be a part of major celebrations in Iran and was declared a national symbol for the country. The Shah wanted to restructure modern Iran on Cyrus's peaceful empire and said that the cylinder stood as a moment from the national past that could best serve as a model and a slogan for the imperial society he hoped to create. In his 1971 Nowruz speech, the Shah declared that the following year would be the Cyrus the Great year, during which a grand commemoration was held to celebrate 2,500 years of the Persian monarchy. The quote from the beginning of my speech today was spoken by the Shah's sister, Princess Ashraf, who presented the UN with a replica of the cylinder. It was joyously accepted, and the Secretary-General linked the cylinder with the efforts of the UN General Assembly to address the questions of respect for human rights in armed conflict. And since then, the replica cylinder has been kept at the United Nations headquarters in New York City as a reminder of the ancient Declaration of Human Rights. I would even go so far as to argue that it says more about real freedoms than Magna Carta, and the message of the cylinder has helped to shape my aspirations for the future. I would like to work in the Middle East, helping to create a world in which religion is not a subject of division or debate, one in which people can respect and help each other despite their beliefs and cultures, and one in which we can learn from the legacy of our ancestors. I would like to finish my presentation with the words of former President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad during the Cyrus Cylinder exhibition at the National Museum of Iran. He said, "The cylinder reads that everyone is entitled to freedom of thought and choice, and all individuals should pay respect to one another. The historical charter also underscores the necessity of fighting oppression, defending the oppressed, respecting human dignity, and recognizing human rights. The Cyrus Cylinder bears testimony to the fact that the Iranian nation has been a flag bearer of justice, devotion, and human values throughout history." Thank you for listening. I hope you found the Cyrus Cylinder as fascinating and inspiring as I do.